Jesus told his disciples to gather up the leftover fragments because he viewed the leftovers as important. The multitude threw away the leftovers once their stomachs were full. But these fragments were a part of God's grace. That's why Jesus told the disciples to gather up the leftover fragments. They were evidence of God's blessings and miracles. Jesus did not want them to be considered worthless. And let's think about it. The mindset of the disciples as they picked up the fragments. In the beginning, they saw that there were only 5 loaves and 2 fish. But Jesus used this small amount of food to feed a few thousand people. And as his disciples moved around the crowd, picking up the leftover fragments, filling up their baskets, they began to understand the work of God. 12 baskets, 1 for each disciple. The disciples had to take time to gather up the fragments, and in doing so, they experienced and became witnesses of the grace of Jesus Christ. That when we think about our own lives, we can probably remember the big blessings that God has given us. We remember when we got our first job, and we remember when we got the nice car, and we remember when we got the nice house. But sometimes we forget about those small ones. The small blessings. And sometimes we are too consumed with the other things to gather up the fragments of the blessing. But how many know it's really not the big stuff, but it's the small stuff? It's the fact that he woke us up this morning. It's the fact that when we woke up, we still had the activities of our life. It's the small stuff. It's the fact that somebody is using breathing machines, but you still got breath in your body. It's the small stuff that you may be complaining about the job that you have, but somebody is sitting in an unemployment line right now. It's the small stuff. You may be complaining about what's on your table, but somebody is looking for a meal to eat. Somebody wish they had running water. Somebody wish they had a refrigerator up, and somebody wish they had food on it. It's the small stuff that makes us look back and say, God, I thank you. I may not live in a mansion on the top of a hill, but I thank you for my 1 bedroom. I may not be driving a Mercedes or a Bentley, but I thank God for a bus token. It's the small things that we ought to say, God, I thank you. It's the small things. Y'all see, it's the small things that we fail to realize that is the true blessings of God. And this leads us to underestimate the grace of God in our lives. And I believe this is where Reverend Cosby Paul was. He was on his way to be tormented in hell, because he felt it was his duty to go about killing and incarcerating Christians, thinking he was doing the right thing. But Jesus stops him in his tracks on a little dusty road called Damascus and saved his soul and taught him, and he became the biggest force that God will use after the ascension of Christ to win souls to the Lord. Paul will go on to do great works and miracles for the Lord. And then we find him calling out to God 3 separate times, asking for removal of some type of thorn in his flesh. God had worked all these wonderful things in the life of Paul. And now he forgets about the sufficiency of God's grace. And we must learn how to appreciate even the leftovers, the small things in the miracle that God sends our way. But we find here in the text, Jesus says to them again to gather up the fragments, the leftovers, so that nothing may be lost. And the disciples did, and each was left holding a basket of miracle leftovers. And so what did they do with them? Did they send some home with folks? Did they prepare divine doggy bags? Did they take them on the boat and snack their way across the Sea of Galilee? Did they feed birds? Did they use it for bait? Say, oh, well, this is that, and this is where we'll leave it. What did they do with the leftovers? And the question is, still today, what do we do with the leftovers? And I guess it depends on the value that we place on it. Yet we are here today because of these small fragments of the grace of God. There is a hymn that tells us to count our blessings, to name them one by one, that it is the duty to keep these small fragments in our baskets, that God performs miracles and give us blessings and grace, but it is our duty to gather up the fragments. And what I found is that sometimes we often complain, wondering why God seems to give more blessings to others than he gives to us. That this is because we don't pick up all the small fragments of God's grace. If we gather all the small fragments up and we put them all in the baskets, we will recognize the abundance of grace that is inside of him. We will understand God's blessing for us, and this will give us comfort and encouragement. And I don't know about anybody else, but through these experiences, we can understand the love of God. Through these experiences, our faith will become rooted in truth. And it reminds me as I take my seat that the author C.S. Lewis wrote that miracles are a retelling in small letters of the very same story which is written across the whole world in letters too large for some of us to see. Small letters, fragments of our lives. And Jesus tells his disciples, he says, go and gather up the fragments that is left over, so nothing may be lost. In other words, just don't leave it there in that moment. Pick up your miracle. Take it with you. Preserve it to share it again. Let it be a Tupperware of the grace of God that lets other people know that God is still working miracles, that God is a God of abundance, that God is a God that will send his presence and his power to work in our lives. And then he says, once you gather all the fragments up, just don't keep it to yourself. Let somebody else know that if God is able to do it for me, he's able to do it for you. I wish I had a witness in the building that said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I just couldn't keep it to myself. I had to tell somebody that God is a healer. I had to tell somebody that God is a way maker. I had to tell somebody that God took my wrong and he made it right. Is there anybody here that says with God there is nothing that is impossible? When I look through the word of God, I see that it was through the grace of God that he used the fragments to make us whole again. It was he that saw Peter, that sought the fragments and called him to himself. It was Jesus that sought Zacchaeus, the tax collector and the thief, but he sought the fragments and called him to himself. It was Mary Magdalene, cast out demons, sought the fragments, but called her to herself. It was the promiscuous woman at the well that saw the fragments and called them to herself. It was Nicodemus during a night school class that saw the fragments and called him to himself. It was the woman that was caught in the very act of adultery that saw the fragments and called him to himself. It was the thief that was hanging on the cross that saw the fragments and called them to himself. And I just came by to let somebody know that when we turn it over to Jesus, when we allow him to work it out, I heard the songwriter say, when I turn it over to the Lord, he's able. Is there anybody know that God is able to work it out for my good? For I heard the Bible say that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. Some of you trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills. All your money spent and got a little bit to find some food. Somebody touch your neighbor, shake them by the hand, shake them and rock them, and say, neighbor, if you turn it over to Jesus, if you allow him to take control, he will turn your little bit and make it much. David said, I once was young, but now I'm old. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken, and I've never seen the begging bread. Somebody touch your neighbor and say, give it to him, and watch him take the little bit and turn it to much. Give it to him and see the promotion come your way. Give it to him and see your body turn to wellness. Give it to him. See your money turn around. Give it all to him. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. If you hold on to it and can't let it go, but if you give it all to the Lord, he'll work it out. Say yes.